Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Jon Ledyard here for a rookie review, Week 12 edition in the NFL. We're going to have some fun on this show. We're going to have an updated offensive rookie of the year discussion. We now got all four quarterbacks in the mix, so that's exciting to talk about those guys and how they have played really over the last 5 to 6 weeks. We've also got to throw in a non-quarterback name into the Offensive Rookie of the Year discussion, who I think actually has a pretty dang good case, who isn't getting talked about enough, and then we'll highlight some of the rookies and how they performed in Week 12. Jon, how you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm doing great because today we're going to talk about a couple of prospects that I was notably extremely high on throughout the pre-draft process and how well they're doing. And so just another reminder to people about my pedigree as a draft analyst. This couldn't be further from the truth because we're going to talk about the Offensive Rookie of the Year race, and it really centers around three quarterbacks right now, I think, more than anything. So we're going to have some discussion there. And I wouldn't say that I was the biggest Bo Nix fan coming out, but just goes to show you that you should never scout quarterbacks, period, end of story, because truly have no idea how it's going to unfold unless you're Trevor Sikkema, apparently, who knows all these things.
I will say this. I was higher on Bo Nix than I feel like a lot of people were. He was still like in the 30s for me when he came to the big board, so I didn't have him like number 2 overall. I want to be very fair. But also, like, to your point, I know you're obviously kind of joking around there, but like landing spot matters so much for these guys. You know, I obviously talked about the things that I like with Bo Nix and how it felt like I liked Bo Nix more than some other people did out there, but I talked about specifically how Denver was a good landing spot for him and this marriage of him and Sean Payton. So we're seeing that manifest really, really well early on. And, you know, speaking of coaching, you know, how that's been different with Caleb Williams when Shane Waldron out and Thomas Brown now making the play calls. We're going to dive deep into all that good stuff. Hey, if you guys are out there and you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, now's a great time to do so. You can follow along here on the show with some premium stats, as well as, you know, the rest of the week, whether you're prepping, whether you're reviewing, whatever it is. And then when the offseason, when we get to the draft and free agency, all the good stuff, a PFF Plus subscription gets you so much data, so many numbers. And right now, for Black Friday sale, 35% off. SCORE35 is the promo code for you there to get 35% off that PFF Plus subscription. You can see it on the screen right there. SCORE35 is that promo code for you when you go to PFF.com, so make sure you get yourself one of those. All right, Jon, updating the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds. Jaden Daniels still minus money right now to win the award, so he is still the odds-on favorite to win the awards. But then Bo Nix really closing that gap. He's around plus 100 to win the award, so he's really kind of right there with Jaden Daniels. Then we have Brock Bowers, actually, who is next in the conversation with the next highest odds. Then it's Drake Maye, then it's Caleb Williams. So Caleb Williams climbing up a little higher, especially from him over the last couple of weeks. I will give you sort of dealer's choice of how you want to attack this topic here. We can talk about any of these guys. We'll get to all of them, but who do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Nix now he's playing? Maybe Jaden Daniels, you know, letting his foot off the gas a little bit. Talk about Caleb's last couple of weeks. How do you want to talk about this Offensive Rookie of the Year race right now?
Well, it does feel like, just because it's usually a team-oriented thing too, that Caleb should be like considered the third, and most likely to win it because their team's 4-7. These other two teams both in the playoff picture. I think are they both 7-5? Are the Broncos 7-5 too?
The
Commanders are. They're 6-5 or 7-5.
They're close. Whatever it is, they're close.
Yeah, they're 7-5 too. Yeah, so to both teams 7-5. So okay, you've got these two teams in the playoff race at least. Now they both could still fall out of it. I think the Broncos feel more securely in there than the Commanders do at this point because the AFC is just an absolute travesty.
Right.
But I mean, Daniels I think is a good place to start with this conversation just because he is still the leader in the clubhouse and just examining kind of what's gone on over the last couple weeks. And to me, the injuries plays a part of it probably, at least in terms of affecting the rhythm and perhaps the confidence a little bit. I do believe them when they say he's fully healthy now. I'm not going to be the conspiracy theorist that's like, no, they're covering up his injuries. Not the same. Especially watching him against the Cowboys. I'm like, all right, he's actually running again. Like, you know, some of this stuff like seems like we're overdoing it in terms of thinking, oh, he's just clearly injured still. He was playing, though, with a tentativeness, especially against Pittsburgh. And I think even to some degree the next week against Philadelphia, those two games, he was playing with a tentativeness that I do not think he was playing with early on. And that some of that went away against Dallas, which is, to me, I think is a sign he's moving in the right direction in terms of getting some of that swagger back. But one of the key things with Jaden Daniels early in the season was nobody could contain him. Like, he was getting out of the pocket and out of structure all the time, just whenever he wanted to. And so And then he was making throws on the move too. You could see the 14 big time throws. Like some of those were coming on the move. And I think that just containing him in the pocket better and disrupting him earlier in his process has made a big difference. This is still not a team that is giving up massive pressure numbers in terms of the offensive line. But this past week against the Cowboys, 32% pressure rate. That's his highest in a couple weeks, at least one of the higher ones of the season for him. And Jayden Daniels has really, really struggled when he's been pressured over the last couple weeks. The completion percentage, an absolute disaster. The turnover-worthy plays, he threw both of his picks, and one of those was the turnover-worthy play in this game under pressure in those situations. So how he's handled and responded to pressure, getting it more frequently and getting earlier pressure too, I think is a factor. It's not a problem for Jayden Daniels when he gets out of the pocket out of structure, then a guy's like chasing him. That kind of pressure isn't really affecting him. But pressure in the pocket that's disrupting his early process and forcing him to bail and get more jittery, those are different stories right now, and that has created more issues for him because he hasn't been able to handle those situations as well as he was early in the season, and he's facing them more frequently than he was early in the season. We wondered if it was going to be like sort of a house of cards with the offensive line, right? Like there's a good group, and I still think they're playing fine, but you do wonder if at some point, okay, now you've faced the Steelers rush, the Cowboys rush. Like that's a bit of a different challenge, and you're seeing some of that crumbling happen. The Eagles rush, those are all different levels of challenge, and you're seeing crumbling in those situations against those two teams. Now, the next two matchups they have, what is it? Isn't it Tennessee and Atlanta? Like they might get back on track in this thing. So I think he's okay, but I think it's not time to panic or anything. But I do think some of those things are exposing at least early career limitations that Daniels might have.
Yeah, for the Commanders, it is Tennessee Titans next week. Then they have the bye week. They have one of the latest bye weeks of any team in the NFL. And then they go to New Orleans. So those are the two games they have coming up next. So those will be interesting tests, obviously. I think the bye week, them having a late bye week could be at the perfect time for this team because it is one more week. Jaden's feeling a little bit more healthy, and then you get them a week off before 4 games to finish the season. I will say that he doesn't, there's seasons within the season, right? And it felt like they really came out of the gate hot. They were playing really well. Jaden kind of gets hurt, and all right, it's a little bit of a lull here that they are in, but they got 5 games left, and this could be a team that really hits it hot again towards the end of the season with these 5 games remaining. I agree with you. It feels like we've cooled down a little bit on just the explosiveness from Jayden Daniels. It's not there the way that it was in the first half of the season, or I should say through the first 6 weeks. And you have to wonder, like, okay, what's the culprit? Is it the injury? Is it Cliff Kingsbury? Because Cliff Kingsbury's kind of got that resume too, right? Where he's able to hit the ground running. He's doing things that teams aren't expecting. His offenses are totally on fire, and then they kind of cool down once teams sort of figure it out a little bit. So we've got the time to continue to evaluate Jayden Daniels, and I'm just wondering if he'll get a little bit more explosive, and in particular, how he was throwing the football outside of structure in the first 6 weeks of the season. It's definitely cooled down. And again, I think you're correct. The injury definitely goes into that for him. But when you still look at the overall raw season numbers, he is still the best. Like, he's got the best rushing numbers. He's got the best throwing on the run numbers. He's got a pretty high big-time throw rate. The turnover-worthy play rate's a little bit higher, but it's still right there with Bo Nix in terms of it being a little bit lower than it is compared to the other quarterbacks. And so whatever category you're looking at, Jayden Daniels should still be the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, because even with him not playing as well as he was during the first couple of weeks of the season, he has still built up a resume that at this point in time, even with as much as Nix is playing really well over the last 6 weeks, Daniel's numbers are still better. And for as much as, okay, what have you done for me lately is great, because you talk about progression of a rookie quarterback, it's still a total resume type of a thing. So Daniel still should be the front runner here, and that sort of brings us into Bo Nix. Bo Nix is, I think, during his draft process, it was a lot of like, all right, this is just a point guard player. It's not really about him. He's not a major difference maker. He's going to kind of do enough for you if you surround him with a good enough offensive line, a good enough run game, and a good enough receivers. Like, he can make it happen for you at the NFL level. Well, the offensive line's playing great in front of Bo Nix. This is one of the best offensive lines right now in the NFL. They're playing extremely well. But the run game, it's not like the run game's that consistent. They got 3 running backs in Estime and McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, who they will hand the ball off to, but it could kind of be a different lead back every single week. So it's not there's a lot of consistency in the run game. And then when it comes to receivers, I mean, it's Cortland Sutton, and then kind of like pick whoever it's going to be every single week. I mean, Devon Vele has been able to step up and play really well, but it's not like this receiver group is phenomenal. So Nix and how this team is playing right now is a major part of the pie. The offensive line is too, but to me, the rise in Rookie of the Year award odds it is warranted to me. Like, Nix is playing that well. He is playing above expectation. He is pushing the ball deeper down the field than I think a lot of people thought that he was going to, myself included, during his rookie season. You know, he's got a ton of touchdowns and barely interceptions, a lot of big-time throws. Well, not a ton of big-time throws, but a good amount of big-time throws and very low turnover-worthy plays over the last 6 weeks that he has been playing. So he's playing his best ball as of late, and if he continues to play at this level throughout the season, we are really going to have a coin flip, I think, of Offensive Rookie of the Year, even if Jaden continues to play the way that he has played. I think that Nix is playing to that level. Do you agree?
I do actually agree. I think especially over the last 3 weeks, you've seen that part of his game really come alive. It's really remarkable what he's done in terms of turnover-worthy plays and just in terms of putting the ball in harm's way. I mean, that week 1 game against Seattle, next week against Pittsburgh, he just looked totally overmatched. He looked in over his head. His first 3 weeks in the league, he had 5 turnover-worthy plays. And you were like, yeah, he just doesn't seem ready. The verbiage of the offense, he struggles in that week 4 game, even if he didn't have any turnover-worthy plays against the Jets defense, which obviously has not been up to their former standards the past couple of years. And it just felt like it was going to be a rough ride type of rookie season. The verbiage of that offense is really hard for a rookie to master. They were getting out of the huddle super late. They were getting a lot of scrimmage late. He didn't have time to change protections. He seemed totally overwhelmed. Seeing the field was just a totally hit or miss proposition for him. And it really hasn't been until, I'd say, the last 5 weeks or so that he started to look like really, really good in terms of positive performances. But he's just limited so many of the big negative plays. I mean, his pressure to sack rate is 14% for rookies, not taking a ton of sacks. His escapability and mobility has been enough to at least avoid disaster type scenarios. He has 2 turnover-worthy plays since week 3. I mean, that is just remarkable. He's avoided so much of the negative stuff that it's allowed him to be just in more positions to continue to keep the ball moving. They stay on schedule as an offense. And, other than the Atlanta game, I don't think he's been so wow statistically in terms of raw statistics. But you go on and watch the tape and you see what they're trusting him to do. I mean, look at the game against the Raiders, and I know their defense is terrible, but they're running 4 verts all the time. They're asking him to throw the ball down the field. He's ripping it into zone windows, and yeah, they're not technically big time throws or high degree of difficulty throws from a contested, small window with coverage closing type of situation. But he knows where the voids are going to be. So when the back foot hits, the ball is coming out. And I think that the command of the offense is one of the most impressive things so far, and the ability to avoid really negative plays. So at the very least, he looks like somebody that can point and shoot your way to a really successful offense. But I actually think the more he's gotten comfortable, the more aggressive he's been throwing the football. And that's led to some, I think, above the pale type of results too for him, where he's actually creating stuff for the offense. So I think you have to be just absolutely thrilled if you're a Broncos fan, obviously, about the direction this whole thing's going in. I do think he's still it's been unbelievable he's been as protected as he's been, and maybe this is just how Peyton is comfortable with it. It seems like the tackles have adjusted to it. He plays really deep in the pocket, and that makes it, in some ways, it buys him an extra half second because guys can't get to him in time, but I think it also makes it a little challenging for the angles of protection for his tackles, who have obviously done an unbelievable job. So maybe the adjustment's there, and that's just, Breeze did play a little bit deeper too, and so maybe that's just how they play it and how Peyton wants it, and maybe that everybody's comfortable with that. But I do wonder if they get up against some of the top pass rush teams, if you're going to see him under a little more duress than he has been throughout the season. But yeah, right now, it feels like this is an offense clicking on all cylinders, and he seems to have mastered it. If he keeps this up, I think he will overtake Daniels, unless Daniels is able to get back to some of what he was doing earlier in the season. So it's going to be a real race to the finish line. But like I said, I think Denver's more likely to make the playoffs than Washington, and that will hold a lot of weight in viewers' minds, even if I don't personally care about that part.
I agree. Now, they're another team that has a late Week 14 bye week. They play the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football coming up, and then they have their bye week. Then it's the Indianapolis Colts at the Los Angeles Chargers, at the Cincinnati Bengals, and then versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So, those are matchups where, you're looking at pass defenses with the Colts and the Bengals and the Chiefs. Not the best pass defenses in the NFL. And the Chargers obviously were struggled against the Ravens, but the Ravens are a really good football team. So we'll see on that one. But this is an opportunity for Bo Nix could absolutely still win Rookie of the Year. Like, if you're thinking like, no, it's Jaden's, it's not going to be all other than Jaden. I mean, Bo Nix could absolutely win Rookie of the Year for how he is playing. You are correct. He got an 82.0 passing grade over the last 5 weeks. It's the highest among rookie quarterbacks. It's, I believe, top 10 in the NFL overall. And so, they're painting a good picture of what this offense could be with Nix, which is really cool to see. Even myself, who I looked at Nix last year at Oregon, and I said, okay, there's an NFL QB in here. There really is. Like, I think that he has got the tools to be an NFL quarterback. This is accelerated even for me, who was somebody who believed in Bo Nix. Like, I thought this was going to be a year 2, year 3 type of a thing, and if it wasn't going to be in year 2, I don't know if he'll get the chance to do it in year 3. We'll see his situation. And the fact that he's been coming out of the gate, and I think I like the way that you said it, it's not like a singular stat, mastery of the offense. It's not like you get a grade like 1 through 10, like how much of a master of this offense that he is, but you see it in the other statistics. You see it in the big-time throw rate, in the completion percentage, in the low turnover-worthy play rate, especially how comfortable and confident he is in this offense, and I think that means a lot towards him. What about Caleb Williams? So last 2 weeks, Caleb's obviously played well, and he looks very different than when Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator. Over the last 2 weeks, Caleb Williams, 81.0 passing grade. You can see probably some of the other stats that he had, specifically in week 12. That's what we've got on the screen right now. 78.8 passing grade, over 300 passing yards, 340 passing yards. 5 big-time throws and 2 turnover-worthy plays in this one. Caleb Williams has 7 big-time throws and 3 turnover-worthy plays over the last 2 weeks. And so I think to look at Caleb Williams while Shane Waldron was his offensive coordinator, you have to, for the sake of Rookie of the Year, because you're taking the whole year into account. But he's got some tough tests moving forward. I don't think that Caleb's going to win Rookie of the Year, because I think that the Bears are going to lose too many football games, and I don't think that Caleb Williams is quite there yet to not put the ball in harm's way. But in terms of the good, we're seeing a lot more good from Caleb Williams. In my opinion, we're seeing a lot more confidence from him. And those big-time throws, those 7 over the last 2 weeks, I think are a big indicator as to that being the case. What do you think about Caleb?
Yeah, I don't know that I see him in the Rookie of the Year conversation, which, that might be disappointing to some people. Maybe that's fair to say. He's definitely played better over the last couple of weeks. I think he's just playing way more aggressive, he seems way more confident and comfortable just pulling the trigger. He's still late to everything. Everything just happens too late for him right now. And like he had 3 turnover-worthy plays in this past game, and he had a couple that he actually completed that he was late down the field to throw, and he just threw it so hard that the guy couldn't make a play on it. But if you watch the process, if you're watching in the All-22 and you see, okay, if he throws this ball with anticipation, which is honestly, and this I obviously had Caleb Williams ranked higher than Bo Nix, and maybe it still gets there. I think everybody pretty much did. But like if you watch with Nix, like Nix is making the exact same throws, but they're not tight window throws, so they're not getting charted as big time throws maybe, but he's throwing it like as the guy comes open, where Caleb's throwing it after he's been open for a second. And so it's just the little things, but that's creating opportunities to put the ball in harm's way, other near misses. Now, the arm strength, if you want to just say from a physical perspective, he's making all these throws, and it's impressive that he's able to fit him in. 100% agree. Like that part is definitely true. Physically, he looks awesome. He's making throws on the move. Late in games, he's been really impressive. He's stepped in and not seemed fazed by the moment. So all the project forward now. It's not about like Caleb winning Offensive Rookie of the Year this year right now for Bears fans and for them to feel optimistic that he's a fit. It's about projecting forward. Are there more building blocks that we can see from the way he's played the last couple weeks than there were early in the season? And I think that definitely is a yes. The problem is, like, if we're just talking about Offensive Rookie of the Year, there's still too many mistakes. He's still not playing as fast or as comfortable. He's on a worse team. He's under worse protection than both the other guys that we're talking about today. So all those environmental issues create a situation where I don't think it's likely that he rebounds to the point where he wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. But in terms of, long term, we feel more excited about Caleb than we were, even 3-4 weeks ago. I think there's definitely lots of space to be able to say, yes, that's been clear over the last couple of weeks.
Yep, I think that's I would agree with you. I'm right there on that approach. Drake Maye is interesting. Drake May's got 5 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions since he really took over as the full-time starter in Week 9. He's got 5 big-time throws. He's got 9 turnover-worthy plays. So Maye, again,
he's just a wild ride, brother.
That's right. I mean, he is. You want some entertainment, just throw on some Drake Maye tape because it's awesome. I mean, the good is so much fun to watch, but yeah, he's putting the ball in harm's way a lot. lot. I think over the next 6 games, just what you really want from the Patriots and Drake Maye is, one, you want him to stay healthy, don't get hurt. And two, you're just hoping that ratio of big-time throws to turnover plays is going down a little bit. Right now I think the footwork's kind of still a mess with him. He's still very erratic in his lower body mechanics. I think that's leading to some bad accuracy, and he believes that he can make every single throw on the field. That's kind of how he played when he was at North Carolina, and that's that gunslinger mentality that you love with him. But you got to learn about what you can get away with at the NFL level and what you can't. And so, to me, I think that Drake Maye, he's not going to win Rookie of the Year, but the rushing ability as well. He's been one of the best rushing quarterbacks out of everybody, including Bo Nix and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, those guys that he's competing with in this rookie class. It's been Drake Maye who's been fantastic and has had an elite rushing grade since he has been the starter since week 9. So that part of his game has been fun to watch. But yeah, just any thoughts on Maye, because we don't really have to talk about him too much from an offensive Rookie of the Year standpoint, but there is one other player that I want to talk about for offensive Rookie of the Year.
I just think Maye's of all these guys, the Bears fired their offensive coordinator, and I still think he's in the worst offensive system and has the worst supporting cast of any of these quarterbacks. So that tells you everything you need to know about how bad the situation is in New England. And, this is where they expected to be. Like, it's the rebuild. It's why they didn't want to play him at all before the year. But his protection's horrible, and somehow he's still has a lower sack rate than pressure to sack rate than some of the other guys we talked about. He's, I think, managed that part about as well as you could expect a rookie to. He's been shockingly accurate, especially because I thought that was one of the big concerns in college, is he wasn't always accurate. This week, a few more misses maybe against Miami, but the weeks before that, he was really playing pretty accurate. The only problem was just 4 balls a game to the other team. That's the problem. But all the balls this team were pretty accurate. He was doing well in that capacity. So I think there's a lot in terms of building blocks. Yeah, you're so excited, I think, about a guy with this much talent and moxie, scrambling ability, high-end throws. Who cares about the turn? Your team's terrible. It's all about the future, and you hope that you can get some of those throws out of the system. But when you still are able to make tough throws to the degree that he is, and you're willing to, just represents ceiling. You just want a player to represent ceiling when you're talking about a team in the situation in New England. And Drake Maye represents, I think, a very high ceiling at this position, which is ultimately what you hope and dream about having. Lots of rough edges to be ironed out, but as of this point in time, realistically, could it look better than this for a rookie quarterback? I just don't think it could. Not in New England's situation, at least.
Yeah, I think that's important. So the third one is, or the next guy that I want to bring to the table is talking about Brock Bowers. Right now, he is third. Aren't we
going to talk about Michael Penix? I thought, wait, he hasn't played yet this season.
No, wait, he did play, didn't he?
He threw 6 dropbacks, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, right.
Are the Falcons trying to win a Super Bowl? Or I thought maybe they were, but then they took a developmental. Anyway,
no. They're not trying. They're not trying to win a Super Bowl. Nobody's trying to win a Super Bowl, really. You're just waiting for Patrick Mahomes to retire, and then everybody's going to try to win a Super Bowl.
Michael Penix will be 42.
It's the long game. Yeah, but think of all the experience he'll have then at 42, right? See, you're thinking too small. You're thinking too small. Our plans are in centuries, as they say in the movie Dune. Okay, so Brock Bowers, third best odds, I should say, to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I can understand why. So far, he has, hold on, make sure I pull up the right numbers now, because they have 6 games left. So they got 6 games left on their schedule. So they already had their bye week. He has 74 receptions. He has 744 receiving yards. 400 of them are coming after the catch, by the way. The rookie record for receptions for a tight end came by Sam Laporta when he was a rookie. 86 catches. Brock Bowers is 74. He could absolutely have that. The rookie record for receiving yards for a tight end is Mike Ditka, and it was 1,061 or 62, something like that. Brock Bowers on pace to break it. In fact, if you just go to the overall receiving rookie record, Puka Nacua set the record last year with 105 receptions. In order for Brock Bowers to beat that, he would have to average 6 receptions a game, which he has done in more than half of his games that he has played so far this season. The overall receiving record is over 1,400 receiving yards from Nacua last year. Brock Bowers didn't beat that. It'd be phenomenal if he did. It'd be just an unreal year. If he does that, I should win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But to me, it's realistic to think that Brock Bowers could hold the rookie tight end reception record, rookie tight end receiving record, and overall reception record for a rookie when this year is all said and done. So we're going to get a record-setting performance from Brock Bowers against 2 quarterbacks who are playing well. They're not record setters in any way. I kind of think that we should be talking about Brock Bowers as an offensive rookie of the year candidate, even more so than these quarterbacks for the year that he is having on a bad Raiders team. What do you think? Am I crazy for that? I almost feel like Brock Bowers should be the favorite right now to win offensive rookie of the year, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends what you care about. Like, people like you and I are just going to care about, like, well, the product, what he puts on tape. And yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, this guy's already one of the best players in the league at his position. Can you say that about any other offensive skill player, at least? Maybe you can get into it with, like, where you're at with Zach Frazier and some of that stuff. But, like, guys who have an actual, like, real, because offensive linemen voters don't believe are human beings, I guess, like, guys that have a real chance of winning the award. You can't say that about anybody else. Like, as good as Nabers started the year, like, you're not putting Nabers in the top 10 wide receivers in the league at this point in time. But you are definitely putting Bowers in the top 10 tight ends, and you could probably even make the case top 5. Some people already think he's the best tight end in the league, and I think that's, getting ahead of ourselves. Trey McBride and George Kittle are unbelievable, and it hasn't been there production-wise for Laporta, but he just did this last season too. Very similar to what Bowers has done so far. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't think there's any question like he should be in the conversation. Is he going to win though? Like, no, this team's horrible, and he's going to have maybe a third string quarterback throwing to him the rest of the season, which, yeah, I mean, hasn't affected him so far. But
right.
I still think, wait, who is it? Is it Desmond Ridder if Aiden O'Connell's not healthy? I think it is Desmond Ridder.
It would be Desmond Ridder, yes.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, he was out of the league for a stretch. So I don't know that it's affected him so far. Having said that, I think the production can be there for him, and you and I can say he's been actually the best, most consistent rookie in the league this season, and yet he still is not going to win the award because he's not a quarterback, and that's just the way that it goes. Now, this award has gone in on quarterbacks. I was doing a little bit of research, and I was actually trying to remember if there have been, I would say it's very rare that it goes to a non-quarterback in a year where we legitimately have a pretty impressive rookie quarterback class so far. But I was also trying to think like how good some of the teams have been in the past couple winners, like if that part matters at all. And from what I can recall, like Garrett Wilson won in 2022 and the Jets were not good. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of a down class, but that might be like maybe Bauer's best chance, right? If you're looking for a facsimile, because I think Stroud and the Texans were good. Chase and the Bengals were good in 21.
Right.
Herbert and the Chargers were, I want to say like at least exciting or frisky, maybe that season. So it feels maybe a little bit like that's the best case scenario he's looking for is like a Wilson type situation. But with good rookie quarterbacks, I don't think his odds to win it are actually there. But if you're just talking about the skill set and what's happened on tape, I mean, he's already one of the best route runners in the league at this position. He's good after the catch. He makes tough catches down the field. He can win at all levels. His separation at the top of his route is just absolute bonkers. You can line him up anywhere and be successful. He's not a great blocker, but he competes. So, yeah, I think if you're looking at the skill set, you're like, yeah, this guy's absolutely everything that needed him to be. And you and I talked about it. How important was that pick for the Raiders? Like, they're literally about as bad as it gets when it comes to talent outside of the Patriots. And they picked a tight end high in the draft too. A lot of people were like, oh, what's the fit? Is he going to be able to work at every set? And they've made it work. So, props to them because that was a high risk pick. And I think that it's turned out as good as you could have possibly hoped for them.
Mike Ditka, the only tight end to ever win this award.
Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah, that was another thing to look
1961. It's the last time, and it's the only time that a tight end has ever won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And again, like we said, like Ditka had the record, over 1,000 yards receiving as a tight end. He still has the record for most yards for a rookie tight end. Nakua didn't win it last year, but like you mentioned, it's because Stroud was having such a great season. I don't think that Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels at this point in time are having the season that Stroud was last year. So genuinely, if Brock Bowers breaks the rookie tight end records and even the overall receiving record for most receptions, I genuinely think he should be the front runner to win the award. I do. But I don't know if he's ever going to win it. We'll see. We got a couple other rookies that we want to talk about here on the show. Before we get to that, got to talk about the staple item of every outfit is the hat, right? Sometimes you got like a go-to hat, and if you keep it around for a long time, it gets sweaty. It's got some sweat stains. It smells. It's dingy. It's beat up. Not a melon hat. If you get a melon hat, these things are going to last forever. These are the most durable hats that you're ever going to find. 5 times more durable than any hat out there. They've got some great styles. So whatever you use a hat for, Melon's got you. If you're somebody who, I just throw on a hat very casually to go for a walk outside, they've got you all different shapes, styles, colors, all that good stuff. If you use a hat to work out, like we said, They're great. They're great and water resistant, almost all of them, but they've got specific ones for workouts that are a little more lightweight. The Hydro Collection, they're good if you're, like jumping in a pool, going in the ocean, if you're going for a run in the rain, whatever it is. They're not going to smell. They're waterproof. They're fantastic in that regard. Or if you like to wear a hat to go out, social events, whatever, go meet some friends, family, whatever that is. They've got some hats that look really nice, and it's not like you're dressing down because you're wearing a hat. It actually enhances the whole outfit. They've also got some hats that are for every single season. The thermal hat, it's obviously getting cold right now, so they've got the thermal hat collection. You guys can go check that out in the different shapes, styles, colors, all that good stuff. Go check them out. Melin, MELIN.com. Get yourself some of the most durable hats that you are going to find, and you could put these hats to the test yourself. I love mine. It looks the exact same from the day that I took it out of the box, and I'm still using it all the time. I have over the last month. MELIN.com. Go check these hats out. You're going to love them. All right, we got two rookies that we want to get to. I figure we go with RB1 first. Talk about the best running back from the 2024 NFL draft that obviously everybody had as RB1 in the 2024 NFL draft, and that is Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving. Irving has sort of been climbing his way up the Buccaneers running back food chain, right? I mean, we go into the season, and Bucky was obviously going to get some work, but it was a running back by committee. Rashad White was the incumbent back, and he was going to get a lot of the workload. Well, we're to the point in the season where Bucky Irving, his statistics, his efficiency, his film, the effort, everything, and now we've got the common stats to reflect how well he is playing, and we saw that against the New York Giants. 12 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown at 7.3 yards per carry average. He had that long run of 56 yards, but then also 6 targets, 6 catches, 64 yards in the receiving game as well, 32 yards receiving on that one singular long catch. And Irving's day could have been even better, right? He gets to the goal line, twice? And he doesn't get a touchdown? Maybe he got a touchdown for one of them. I can't remember. But this guy's day could have been even better. They would have been talking about him on all the major outlets, but we'll talk about him here on the show. Bucky Irving, he's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He wasn't in that conversation that we just had there. But, man, the Bucs got a good one in Bucky Irving. What did you see from him, and what have you seen from him this season?
Well, I think just the ability to create, that's what you're looking for at this position more than anything else. If you are going to make an argument for running back and being, sort of irreplaceable in some capacity, it's how much can you create beyond what's given to you, basically, within the structure of a play. And as a pure rusher, this is where Rashad White probably struggles the most. He's pretty much always going to get what's there, but he hasn't gotten that much more. And he's been a great receiver, great pass protector. He does a lot of little things well. But Bucky Irving has kind of emerged as a player who's able to get more than what's created. And I definitely have egg on my face. I thought at the beginning of the year that Rashad White was just a guy that we're going to lean on very heavily because he is such a 3-down guy. So for Irving to be able to come in and share this role with him and be a 3-down guy, that is really surprising to me that he's been able to pick that up to that degree. But yeah, the missed tackle rate is obviously just the number one thing that you note outside of just the versatility of his game. I mean, he has microscopic in terms of his carries compared to the other top guys in the league this season. He's only got 108 rushes. Everybody ahead of him on the missed tackles forced list has considerably more carries than he does this season. And yet we are in a situation where we're looking at Bucky Irving with 34 missed tackles on the season. And his missed tackle rate, too, is also one of the highest in the season. He's tied for 4th in missed tackles forced rate this season. This is in the receiving game, and he's 3rd in the rushing game in missed tackles forced rate. So his rate is just so far above league average. The league average missed tackles forced rate for receiving is 27%. He's at 50% half the time on his receptions. He is forcing a missed tackle. It has just been unbelievable to watch how hard he is to get on the ground and how hard he is to hit square. The other thing I really like about him, he's just creative. How many times have we seen him this season, switch field without losing ground, though? A lot of guys will run backwards and they got around the defense, they lost contain. He just will switch fields and do stuff that he sees crevices that other people just don't see when he catches the ball in space. And so it's been a really awesome season for him. I think that just the fact that he is sharing the load and Whitey's a good player too, and they're spreading the ball around in Tampa is going to keep him from the type of volume counting numbers that you probably need to be able to compete for this award. But this show is about highlighting people who have played at the level, especially on a per-touch basis. And on a per-touch basis, he is second in the NFL right now to only Tank Bigsby who actually has less carries than Irving.
Right.
He is second in the NFL right now in yards after contact per attempt at 4.19. 4.19 yards after contact per attempt this season for Bucky Irving, who's one of the smallest backs in the league. It's been a remarkably impressive season for him so far, and I think it's very exciting to see a player that's taken later in the draft again, like looks like the best running back from this class so far. Tyron Tracy's looked good as well, but I mean, I think Irving is for sure going to be all rookie first team. It looks like at the rate he's going right now.
Yeah, Irving's been fantastic, and honestly, like that's a big part of why I was a Bucky Irving fan. I don't mean for this to like, I'm going to toot my own horn or kind of what I thought about Bucky Irving going into the draft, but like that creativity and that how should I say this? Natural ability to just process like, I'm going to make this guy miss. Like some running backs, when they get up to defenders, they don't really know what to do. They don't know, okay, I'm going to stutter step. Okay, I'm going to put my foot. I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to give this guy a spin move. I'm going to stiff arm him, something like that. And they have to think about it. And sometimes you can watch backs who might be really talented just not be ready for those situations. For Bucky Irving, it's so natural. He understands how to attack a defender the best and to make them miss a tackle and to be able to get beyond it. And that missed tackle rate was really high when it was at Oregon consistently. And I felt like it was going to be something that translates to the NFL level because, in my opinion, if you have a missed tackles forced per attempt average that is consistently high and a yards after contact average that is consistently high, you're good. Like that's going to translate to the NFL level. It's not like that goes away. You know, we have metrics that are like stable and unstable metrics, like some that we understand are they're going to be a little bit higher at the college level. It's not going to be really the same thing at the NFL level. We don't see that kind of one-for-one translation. We see those things at the running back position. If you could do those two things, not only do you have individual value and efficiency beyond your offensive line, but it will translate to the pro level, especially if you could do it at a high level. Bucky Irving consistently did it at a high level, and it's just no surprise to me that he is playing as well as he is. It really isn't. I mean, you look at it's not even necessarily the situation in Tampa, which I think that Tampa's got a good offensive line. It's gone through some injuries a little bit, but Bucky Irving's yards before contact average this season, you talked about his yards after contact, 4.2 yards per carry average there. His yards before contact average is 1.2. Like, it's not like the offensive line's really allowing him to get to the line of scrimmage super clean. Like, he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage a lot of times. Now, that's not to say that Tampa's offensive line is actually terrible. It's not what I'm trying to say, but it's like he's creating a lot of that stuff for himself. And this is just things to remember about when you are scouting players and when you're thinking about running backs in college that you want going from college football to your NFL team. Get yourself a PFF Plus subscription and see missed tackles forced per attempt and go see
follow Trevor's board,
yards per contact percent, and obviously look at my board. No, but that's like genuinely, those are two areas where we think that they are generally good scouting metrics to predict what a player was at the college level and what he could be at the NFL level. So, huge Bucky Irving fan. Yep. Love it. Any other Bucky Irving thoughts before we go to
I just want to say one more thing on it. Just the receiving stuff is so stark, and he's had to share this role with Rachaad White because Rachaad White is such a good receiver as well. The Bucs have obviously, especially since Godwin went down, built a lot of the passing game just about based on the receiving ability of their backs, and they are one of the league leaders in 21 personnel, but not with a fullback like the Dolphins or 49ers might use, but instead with like two actual running backs on the field, and they use Bucky Irving literally as a receiver. They'll line him up out wide and they'll just throw the ball to him like all the time. And his yards per route run, 1.66 yards per route run amongst running backs with at least 100 carries this season that have been like on the field a lot in these situations. He is third in the NFL in that capacity. And then his elusive rating per PFF, which is basically like constituting how good they have been outside of what's being blocked for them in terms of creating. He is by far the highest back in the NFL this season. This is in the receiving game at 149.5. This is elusive rating. Kenneth Walker is the next closest, who's been unbelievable. But so to show on a per touch basis, again, I don't think people realize like how good this guy has been, because the Bucs never get talked about in the national picture, and because he is sharing the load in the room, these like crazy volume stats that are used on a lot of network TV and stuff like that. But I think when you look at the per touch basis, like he has been absolutely outstanding this season. Deserves to be in that conversation, even if we know he's not going to win the award. Yep, he has been great. If you're looking for the best way to win huge prizes during one of the best NFL weeks of the year, look no further than DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. This Thanksgiving, you can play for free
a $1 million top prize. That's right. Any customer, new or existing, can play free for the $1 million top prize with their next $5 deposit. When you talk about matchups coming up on Thanksgiving week, I mean, we were just talking about Bucky Irving. They're taking on the Carolina Panthers. It's not on Thanksgiving Day, but it's Thanksgiving week. Panthers defense hasn't been so great this season. If you think Bucky is going to continue to rise, take a look at some of his numbers, and you might be happy you did. Make it a really happy Thanksgiving with DraftKings. All customers can download the DraftKings app and use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to play for a free shot at the $1 million top prize. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit required. Reward issued as $5 ticket for November 28 Fantasy Football Millionaire. Last guy that we want to talk about, it's a rookie that was also in this game here. And it's Malik Nabers. Now, Malik Nabers' situation this season has not been as explosive as maybe some of us thought it would be. I had him as a top 10 player in the class. I love Malik Nabers. I think he can still be a fantastic receiver in the NFL. He finishes the game with 9 targets, 6 catches, and 64 yards. But, John, all of that came in the second half. First half of this game, 0 targets, 0 catches. What'd you think about Malik Nabers' day? And then afterwards, he gets asked about it. He's like, hey, slow start to the game. Malik Nabers is basically like, look, you got to talk to the coaches. I got to get the ball more. I got to get involved more. And then Brian Daboll, the day after, they asked him about that, and Brian Daboll said the same thing. Brian Daboll was like, hey, you know what? It's my job to get my stars the ball more, and we did not do a good enough job getting Malik Nabers the ball. So regular stats look fine, but all of that came in the second half. It was not spread out as much as it needs to be. And to be fair, the Giants didn't have the ball as much. They weren't really in a lot of passing situations during the first half of that game. They were getting absolutely dominated. But your thoughts on Malik Nabers overall, some of those frustrations that he has vocalized, and then the tape this past week against the New York Giants?
Yeah, I mean, he's just speaking out of emotion. I think like Malik Nabers is one of the league leaders in targets this season, or at least he was going into this week. I mean, he still is probably after the second half of this game. The Giants have literally at times overworked him. It's so funny how the criticisms go with this situation, because I remember the game, which was the game he got knocked out at the end of the game, like the drop along the sideline that he had. But it was one where he got hit. I forget which game it was, but he ended up like on the chalk, like he was like out, I think, and then they walked him off and he missed the next game, I think. He's missed 1 or 2 games this season, and he's still amongst the league leaders in targets this season. Like, they have force-fed him the ball to a point where people were literally tweeting and wondering, is he going to get overworked this season as a rookie? Now, one half, and they don't get him the ball with a third-string quarterback, and people are questioning like whether he gets the ball enough. And he is a part of this, obviously, because he says, there's already 30-0. It was 23-0, and then he got like 4 targets on the next drive. But on the first drive of the third quarter, they had 10 dropbacks. They had 18 offensive plays in the first half. They had 10 dropbacks. Tommy DeVito got sacked on 4 of them. So yeah, they hardly had any plays that functioned. Their offensive line was complete disaster in the first half. They couldn't protect DeVito at all. And then DeVito didn't pull the trigger when he did have opportunities to throw the football. He was panicking. That's why Malik Nabers didn't get the ball in the first half. Like, Brian Daboll has force-fed this man targets. He has literally said, I don't care if you're a rookie, we're going to build the entire plan out of you all season. And so I find it a little bit rich that I know that everybody's just always looking for ways to criticize Daboll, and I do feel like sometimes I am his only defender left on the planet. And I don't think he's done everything perfectly at all. I think there's things he absolutely should have done better, and I think he's probably right. And I think I seriously question whether he has some of the soft skills needed to do this job, this particular job, head coach, especially of the New York Football Giants, at the level that he needs to. I think it's very fair to question whether he's the right man to turn around, obviously, a disaster organization. It's been a disaster since well before he got there, and it seems like it's going to be a disaster for a little while longer until they figure out some of the most key positions on the team. But yeah, I think that you're in for a pretty rough ride if you're Malik Nabers and you're upset about one half, because he has gotten all you can eat. He has been very good this season. I think he's also looked at times completely exhausted late in games. He's had a lot of late game drops, probably because some of that fatigue this season, and he had one in this game as well. And so I think he can be better. I also think the fact that the offense is what it is at this point in time, man. The offensive line unwatchable performance from both tackles in this game. Like, two guys that literally just can't compete. Chris Hubbard's just done. The Luminor gets hurt 4 snaps into the game. Evan Neal just looks atrocious. DeVito has no chance, even if he were a good quarterback, and I don't think we have any evidence that he is, even though he played okay in the second half of this game. So, yeah, it's just a lot of things for the Giants, and I think it's very unrealistic for him to expect that, even though I know it's human nature to have want to contributed before your team goes down. The reality is this team's just done, and that's unfortunate for him in his production, because he's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, even though he's talented enough to do so, and he may still have a good game or two before the end of the season, but this is looking like a team that'll draft in the top 5, maybe top 3.
This is the part that worries me the most about Daboll, because I do think that he's a good football coach. I think he's a great football mind, especially in the offensive side of the ball. And so I would like for the Giants to keep him as head coach. But the issue now becomes, this is a Giants team that's very frustrated very clearly. You have somebody like Malik Nabers who's like, you got to give me the ball more. And like you said, there's numbers to say they've gotten him the ball plenty so far this season. But then you look on tape and there's guys who are not really giving 100% effort. You can kind of see that. They could be playing a little bit harder. They could play more with more urgency. They could play with more focus, and they're just not. It's a defensive thing. It's an offensive thing. Everything is there. You talked about some of the issues on the trenches, but also the defensive side of the football as well. Like Deonte Banks has been criticized for lack of effort throughout this season. The clip that was going around of Bobby Okereke basically just doing his cardio out there, just getting some running in, not really interested in actually making the tackle on a play. And, I'm not trying to do that to like take shots at people, but it's hard to get really invested to go suit up to play a game with all you got. And when the situation for the Giants sort of is what it is. And that's what really worries me about Daboll is it feels like he's losing the locker room, at least when it comes to a motivational standpoint. You've got, 6 weeks left of this?
No.
It can get uglier for sure. And if it does, can you, even if you have all the right excuses, even if you have Daniel Jones is out and we're going to get our quarterback in there and we're going to, kickstart things. We're coming off of a really good draft class with Nabers and Newman and Drew Phillips and everybody. We're going in the right direction when it comes to roster building. Can you bring back a head coach that loses the locker room like this? Can you really bring him back the next year? And the players that are still here on the team, can they really look at Daboll and be like, yeah, all right, man, sure, we'll get up for this season? I don't know. You might need to clean house at this point. And Mara might be wanting to clean house at Joe Shane simply because of what Saquon Barkley is doing for the rival Philadelphia Eagles. That might be the one move over anything else where he goes okay, well, I'm sick and tired of this. I hate this. I'm moving on. And it's not getting easier to think that this Giants regime is going to be back next year. And I thought that this week was the most damning. And to be honest with you, I have less faith now than I ever have that Daboll and Shane are going to be back next year because of how these guys are playing when they go out there and how unmotivated some of them look. And that's tough to overcome. It really is.
It definitely is. Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of questions there for sure with them. And just to wrap up the Nabers point, I think just if we're just zeroing in on him, there is a key area, Trevor, in which he can be better this season. And it was disappointing in this game against the Bucs, to be honest with you, when you watch his performance. The biggest thing for me that has been disappointing with Nabers, and I think he has been across the board good. Contested catches, ability to get open. He is incredibly hard to cover. I think he's going to be an unbelievable pro. I really think he'd be a top 10 receiver in the league. All those things are true. If we're just looking at him right now this season and we're saying, why isn't his production even better than it is, which has been great. He's going to probably have 1,000 yards. I think there's, we are nitpicking here for sure. But if we're wondering about that part of it, to me, it's that they have force-fed him targets. His average depth of target has not been some crazy thing this season where he's only getting all these deep balls and nothing else. They have given him lots of opportunities in the short areas of the field to get the ball in space and make people miss. They have run him a ton on shallow crosses and getting the leverage off the snap on defensive backs and getting able to catch the ball on the move. He's not been able to make people miss in space. He has not been a creator after the catch, and that is, I think, one of the bigger disappointments. If you're just saying, why isn't his production better? They've given him lots of opportunities to create for himself, and he hasn't done it. He has 2 forced missed tackles over the past 5 weeks of play for him. He only has 6 total on the season. He is averaging yards after the catch per reception this season, 3.2 yards after the catch per reception. Do you want to guess where that ranks out of the 42 qualifying wide receivers?
40.
It's not quite that low. 34th.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
He's tied with Keenan Allen. He's tied with Keenan Allen. I mean, and especially, we're not talking about a small sample size. Remember, this guy has plenty of targets on the season. He has gotten lots of opportunities. And so that part of it not being what it should be, I think, he is third in the NFL amongst all wide receivers in targets this year. And yet there have not been the opportunities to create after the catch. He had the ball in space a couple times, could not make people miss in this game, did not break force any missed tackles or pick up much after the catch in this game. And so that, to me, if you're just looking at his game, I would have thought he would have been way more dynamic in that way. And if he wants that type of production, he needs to be able to create for himself in some of the situations that they're designing for him. So that's the area of his game I'd look at a lot over the next couple of weeks to see if it improves or not.
That's a great point. Go follow all of Jon's great work over at the Audibles and Analytics Substack, the Audibles and the Analytics podcast. He also does the Read Optional podcast with Ollie Conley. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to this week's edition of the Rookie Review. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, and we will see you at the same time for once again next week. See you guys then.